as the Director of Football Operations at Tulane University. Of course, the Green Wave back in action against UTEP this Saturday afternoon in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome in a Conference USA contest at 2:30. Please give a warm quarterback club welcome to David Fox at Tulane University. David?
Thanks, Kenny. As previously noted on your emails, Roger Dunaway, our Media Relations Director, was supposed to be here. He came in about a half hour, 45 minutes ago and said that he couldn't make it. So I'm assuming there's something going on with conference realignment. I know Mr. Dixon's off at meetings, and I don't know what that is. I'd love to be able to tell you something, but there must be something up. So anyway, it's short notice here, so you have to bear with me. Obviously, last week was not the outcome we wanted. Not the outcome we were looking for. You talk about the tale of two different halves as far as the defense goes, really both sides of the ball. I don't know if we have an answer for why we come out and play lackluster in the first half and then come back in the second half and play well. In a lot of respects, I mean, you could blame it on coaching, you could blame it on a lot of things. It reminded some of us of Ole Miss last year. We felt like in the second half of the Ole Miss game a year ago that, you know, if we'd have got off to a better start, we might have been able to beat that team because they really weren't probably as talented as we gave them credit for. Same kind of thing here. Ryan Griffin had a heck of a night. I think at one point he completed 15 passes in a row. Went 24 or 25 or 30, 31, something like that. Really just a heck of a game. And, you know, we found a new freshman wide receiver that I think we feel like we found a guy we can go to. We've been waiting for another Casey Robottom or Jeremy Williams, somebody. We really haven't had that person this year. And some of that's just growing pains, just having freshman wide receivers running around. But Xavier Rush, I mean, before Saturday night, the only thing I knew about him really is he had a peanut allergy, and I had to give him a grilled Chick-fil-A every night after the ball game. So he's a guy that we feel like made some strides. Brandon LeBeau is another one that we feel pretty good about. He just hasn't had that breakout game. So, you know, this week, you know, we'll probably accentuate the positive, I suppose you could say. We feel like our running backs are as good as anybody. Orleans had something like 60-some yards, but Orleans Dark was as good a running back as there is out there. And physically, you know, we went into that game thinking we're going to have to throw it in order to be able to run it, you know, get them to defend the pass first, and then we might be able to sneak some runs in there. And I think it ended up working out that way. But between Orleans and Robert Kelly, who's a local kid here, obviously, those are probably two of the best running backs you're going to see around in the same backfield. Between being able to get Griffin going, you know, our defense first half was non-existent at times. Kickoff team was a problem. The third quarter, we came back, and I think they gave up held Syracuse to 14 yards in the entire quarter. I have no, you know, I don't know if there's an explanation for it. If they changed some things they were doing, if our defense felt like, you know, our coaches found a few things that were working, maybe had a better feel for what they were trying to do to them, those sorts of things. Probably a little bit of all of it. At any rate, the last drive was one that, you know, they obviously, you know, they were a talented team, and I think they just decided, hey, we got to get something going here. And, you know, a really tough third down penalty. Matt Bailey from Carr made a great play on a ball on 3rd and long, and, you know, we could argue all day about the 15-yard penalty, but Desmond did hit him, you know, with his hands in the head. So, you know, I think nowadays with all the cautious play in regard to concussions and things, that, you know, they probably have to make that call. You know, there was an earlier call in the game on a chop block that took points off the board, and we settled for a field goal. But at the end of the day, you know, there's a whole bunch of things that get you beat, and, you know, giving up a 95-yard kickoff return is part of it. So you're not, you know, I don't want to stand here and say 2 penalties got us beat, because that's not the case. There's a lot of things that go into that. We did not play well enough in the first half to beat them. Unfortunately, they got a field goal as time ran out, and you know, we got to move on with it. The guys were extremely disappointed. They felt like they should have won that game. As most of us did, especially after coming back, from, they picked themselves up after a really poor performance the week before. So, moving on, UTEP, we've kind of had their number. Ryan, or I guess I should say Ryan Griffin has had their number. 2 years ago in the Dome, Ryan led us down the field on a 2-minute drive that was really impressive for a redshirt freshman quarterback, and I think that was to tie the game, and then we went into overtime, didn't we? Went into overtime to beat them. And then last year, and then my counterpart at UTEP, he still talks about how they did not have an answer for Griffin to Robottom last year. I think Casey Robottom had something like 10 or 12 catches for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns a year ago. We feel like we match up really well against them. They've got a really good running back that didn't play against us a year ago. Banyard's his name. I didn't even know about him until the meeting this morning, but he's a good player, leading them in rushing. And they've got a decent quarterback coming back and a wide receiver that's they've had 2 wide receivers. One's kind of a possession guy, and the other one's their big play guy down the field. But they're averaging some points. Mike Price and Bob have a long history, and they're really great friends. UTEP has struggled on defense in a lot of ways. If you look at the Las Vegas Hilton, it's a pick 'em, and so it should be a heck of a ball game. But we feel like it's a game that we ought to come out and play well. It's a conference game, and we got a chance to get some momentum going. We have UTEP this week at 2:30, and then Memphis the week after. So, any questions? You guys have anything?
Raise your hand, gentlemen.
Well, it's a sliding scale, so the incident, you got to be a qualifier, but we've had guys that have gotten into school with 18, 19, 20 ACTs, and you can get away with that if your grade point average at your school is higher. The biggest difference, the issue is not so much getting guys into school. That is true in some cases. There are guys who can't get into school. The biggest difference between our place and other schools is we're down 4 scholarship linemen right now, offensive linemen. We have something like 12, maybe 13 offensive linemen. You really want to have 16. How did we get in that situation we recruited a guy that had a history of concussions, and looking back on it, we probably shouldn't have taken him. He got dinged his redshirt freshman year, and he's done. His career is over. We had another kid that came in a year ago, and you'll have to bear with me, there's a reason I'm telling you all this. Another true freshman a year ago that came into camp, slipped in the bathroom during camp, hit his head on the sink, concussion, never got better. Career over. So we're down 2. And then we had 2 other guys. One was kind of an academic casualty, and then another one that we had some disciplinary problems. 4 offensive linemen, you're down. Now, this is where and again, I don't want to stand up here and make excuses. One of the things that we would have done, probably if we could, was take 1, probably 2 junior college linemen in a situation like that. The issue is not getting a junior college lineman into school. You can get accepted. The issue is the hours that he brings with him don't transfer, and it is almost impossible for him to get enough hours together in an academic year. Desmond Moses, the guy who came from Iowa. Iowa's a really good academic institution in the Big Ten. Even coming from there, he had to take something like, his spring, he'd been there in the fall. I wasn't around the first spring he was here. He had to pass something like 36 hours his second 2 semesters just to get to where he was able to play. That's a lot. And, most people only have to take maybe 24, and which is a testimony to Desmond. He's a pretty good student. But I guess your question is, how hard is it to get into school? It's a little more difficult, sure. But there's enough of those guys out there that we can find. We got to go to other places. We can't get them all from Louisiana. But, the biggest thing we have a problem is if we lose a guy, in this instance we lose 4 scholarship linemen, it's tough to reload that right away. We got some pretty good 5 true freshman linemen in there right now, but they're true freshmen, you know, and we put them in and their heads are just spinning. So, if that answers it. Yeah, probably. Yeah, and I'm not sure I can answer that, but yeah, there's a bottom. Again, it's a sliding scale. I want to say, I don't think I've seen anybody in 3 years get in with a 17. But again, it's a slide, you know, they're going to take into account what his grades are in the school, the classes he took. I mean, I'm talking about Tulane admissions. They look at all that stuff. It's not just, oh, he has 17, he's out. You know, they look at all those things. But, you know, the bottom, and, you know, the other part of that is it's all about competition in the classroom. I mean, you know, we got to be careful the guys we bring in. You know, if you put a kid in a position that he's not going to succeed, that, you know, that's poor recruiting on our part. We got to kind of filter it ourselves just to know, hey, listen, you only get 25 of these to give out a year, and if you lose a couple of them early, you know, rather than matriculate through, you got a problem. So.
I guess the follow-up question is there, so the kid has 17 or 18, do they have some type of thought process that only 10 or 12 of those kids can get in? Does the university allow for 10 or 12 exceptions?
We have, I guess you call them special admits. I mean, not 10 or 12. I want to say it's around 4.
So these people that are 17 and 18, probably very few of those more.
I'd say the majority of our guys that we bring in a class, we're going to be anywhere. There'll be 1 or 2 guys in that 18, 17. I don't know about 17, but 18, 19, 20. We'll have a couple in that category. The rest are going to be 20 to 24. I think what it does is it narrows your pool of recruits. I mean, you know, the guys that can compete, you know, but, you know, technically we're in the same boat as Rice, as SMU, Tulsa. I mean, we should be. When you start going Central Florida, Southern Miss, and some of the more state-type public institutions, and yeah, we might be at a disadvantage, especially with the junior college thing. Those guys can load up every time they lose somebody. Yeah, I think part of that is, and this is just my opinion, but Syracuse runs a defense that we see pretty much every day in the spring. So, yeah, it's easier finding. Army's defense is really different. I mean, shouldn't be that big of a problem, but it does make a difference. Xavier Rush. Yeah. He was out there. He was out there. He just hadn't. Well, he was. No, he played every game. He's played in every game up to then, and yeah. Now, yeah. So are we. Yeah. You know, and I don't know, he's a young guy, you know, maybe it took 3-4 games to kind of finally, you know, get his legs under him and feel comfortable, and maybe to figure out where he was going, kind of like Griffin finding him. Anything else? All right, guys, thank you. Come on out Saturday.